What you doing, readers? I'm the AC, and I'm going to talk about the book, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Ooh, good looking book, isn't it? Whoop! Whoa. Really like the design of it. But if you do not know what this is the prequel story to the Hunger Games trilogy. If you don't know what that is, honestly a little surprising. There's a whole trilogy of books and 4 movies, but it doesn't matter because this book really stands on its own. You don't need to know anything about the other Hunger Games to really enjoy this book. And I loved it. Honestly, there's so much in it I could talk about. I could have a whole podcast just to talk about this book, you know? So, yeah. But what it does is it follows President Snow, as we saw him, but back when he was 18 years old. His name is Coriolanus Snow. I had to practice that name a lot. And he's become a mentor for the 10th Hunger Games. And he's getting the tribute from District 12, the female named Lucy Gray. I say it like that because that's what it says in the open flap of the book. But yeah, he's not thrilled about it. He's been putting on this whole disguise of wanting to still be rich because his family was rich, but then the war made him poor because that's what war can do. His parents are dead. He's left with the grandmamam, I think is how you say her name. It's something weird, and his cousin T-Rex. So he's wanting to prove himself by showing off his tribute, showing off Lucy Gray, and he doesn't necessarily think she can win, but the Hunger Games go on. And as amusing, should I say amusing? I don't really want to say cool. As dark as the Hunger Games can get, it only takes up the first half of the book. I'm not going to say too much about what happens, even though I could. But there's a lot of themes in this book that are talked about a lot, and you don't even realize it. One, there's this need for control that Snow ends up developing. And I didn't realize it till closer to the end of the book, but he talks about it a lot. And there's a good way of disguising it throughout the book, but it makes me realize he wants control over how he looks, make people still think he's rich. He wants control over Lucy Gray throughout the games. He wants control over his life. And it's a big thing that takes over. And he also uses his thought of control because he doesn't want there to be chaos. He thinks in order to prevent chaos is to have control. Well, I've learned through my life, a little personal experience. And when you really think about it, there's no such thing as absolute chaos, pure chaos. There's really only controlled chaos. I don't know if this is what they're going on through the book, but when you think about chaos, you think about violence and war and all this stuff. It is something that is being controlled. It's being controlled by one party against another, and it seems like chaos because that's what war is. But it does go on after the games, and this is when the book really started getting to me, really started making me think. Yes, there's this obviousness that the Hunger Games is bad, and he realizes this, and he starts to draw upon it. And all he's thinking about, though, is winning, getting Lucy Gray through it. But once it's over, and he just becomes afraid of his life, afraid of losing that control. And all he wants to do is try to find a way back, get his life back how he wanted. And you see the struggle between, like, love. You see a struggle between control. Can you control your love? Then you also see the power. And it's like, if he gives up all this stuff for love, is he going to be able to keep his power? But then he fears for his life. And it makes him think, is he really doing all this stuff that makes you think he has a changed heart? That he's starting to see a brighter side because he's actually changing, or he's just afraid for himself? There's a whole lot of stuff to cover in this book, but there was other things aside from within this book that also makes me think. One, when I was talking about friends on the topic of this book, they asked me, you think they're making a movie of this? And I wondered on it. I was like, I don't know. It's possible, of course. The other 3 books have a movie. It could be a book. They would have to find a way to condense the timeline, which is weird to say because the whole book only takes place in like a few months, like 3 months. And yeah, it could be an interesting book. They might, I don't know, because it seems like a lot of the actiony stuff is in the first half, and then the rest is more character depth and exploring the character even more. So even though it would be interesting, I think it's better as a book because, you know, the book is always better, right? The movies always make it weird. The other thing is, when I was first wondering what this book was going to be about, even though I knew it would be about President Snow's past, I wasn't sure what that would be like. If it would go into how he became president, maybe just his childhood. I didn't expect him to be a mentor in Hunger Games at all. I didn't see that coming, so that was cool, and I like where that goes. But I expected it to take place through most of his life. It only takes place like in 3 months, and then it made me think, is there going to be a sequel to this? And the way the book is written, it easily could. There's a lot of stuff that's left untold at the end, but a big but, there's an epilogue, and it kind of ties it up. Not really answering any questions, but it pretty much bridges that huge years of gap in between and be like, okay, if you read The Hunger Games, you know this is where it leads, and it does a lot in the last few pages to be like, this is where his mind's at. You can see how this leads him to where he ends up. If you didn't read The Hunger Games, it's a weird ending. So I kind of wish the epilogue wasn't in this book. Like, it would have been so much better if they left it how it was, and then just let people wonder if there'd be a second one. And, I mean, it could be a second one. I could see things they could do with it to at least do one more book, and they still could. The epilogue would make it weird. I don't know. But, like I said, there's a lot of great stuff in this one. A lot of stuff to make you think. There was one quote in it, I don't remember it word for word, but it's something along the lines of what the youth lack in experience, they muck up in idealism. I mentioned this in a podcast before, and it really got me thinking. And there's another character, Suzanne Collins, and he's kind of the idealism that the youth has, while Coriolanus Snow is the realism, the realistic experience. Even though they both have experienced the war, they both grew up in that. Snow went from rich to poor, and then Suzanne went kind of the opposite way. I'm assuming he wasn't poor, but he went even richer. Suzanne just is one of the people that wants to stop all this, and he believes it, and it seems like he kind of rubs off onto Snow, but then Snow just sees him as a bother. There's this like one direction relationship, and Snow really doesn't, he doesn't really ever rely on anyone willingly. He doesn't realize everything that's happening to him, good or bad. Anything good that happens to him is because of other people. Anything bad is mostly because of him or his family's fault. He doesn't want to take the blame for anything. Everything else seems to happen. Suzanne, on the other hand, blames everything on himself. There's this whole dual personality between the two. I guess a yin and yang, if you want to call it. And really, it's where a lot of the symbolism comes in, is with characters. All these characters, you can see how everything works in this world without it being spelled out for you. And if anything, the characters that make this book. The Hunger Games, even though that's a lot of actiony stuff, and well, even this one isn't action. Even though there's a lot of stuff happening, the character, there's not even development. There's just a lot of depth to all of them, and it's great. And you don't have to spell anything out for it. There was one thing though, one little thing that just got me. It's like kind of spelled out why the book has its name pretty much right away in the beginning, and it struck me odd because everything else is well written and isn't right in your face. It's not so obvious. It's like you marinate in a little bit and you're like, the name of the book though is pretty much spelled right. It's like, oh yeah, there's a girl who carries snakes who also sings. Acts like a songbird. And they get more into that later in the book also. The other thing is, they're not super obvious and they're not like just thrown at you. They're subtle, but there are Easter eggs, references to the other Hunger Games. So that's nice. It sticks out if you know the other trilogy a lot. So I don't know, that's a little. But that's all I'm going to say on this book for now. Like I said, a whole podcast worth. And if you've read this book and you're interested in doing a little Zoom chat with me to turn into an hour-ish long podcast, let me know. Get in touch with me. However you prefer to do that, there's a lot of ways to do it. Because I would love to talk about this book even more with someone who's also read it. Go ahead and do that. But if you don't want to get that far and you want to leave some of your opinions about what you thought, leave them in the comment. If you like what I have to say about the book, go ahead and give this video a like. If you want to see more of other stuff I'm reading and all kinds of stuff I do and talk about, go ahead and subscribe on my channel. You can see when I do all that. But until then, I'm the AC. Thank you for watching and bye.